If you guys don't know what's happening with San Francisco in the past week or so, it was the big APEC summit. This is like the Asia Pacific Economic Convention. You have hundreds of high-end CEOs, very wealthy people, hedge fund managers. Tim Cook was there, Elon Musk was there. Basically, if you have influence in big companies and, of course, world leaders, were all present in the APEC event. This was like a super high-end event that San Francisco really needed to get its city back on track. Because if you guys don't know what's happening in San Francisco, it's basically festering ever since the pandemic, right? After the pandemic, people just never came back because the situation in San Francisco is really bad. The crime was through the roof. Shoplifting is ranked number 1 in the entire country. Car break-ins is like ranked number 2, right behind Oakland, who is ranked number 1. And there's barely any tourists coming in, right? All the tourist traps are empty. Market Street has some of the most iconic stores leaving. You even have like the biggest hotel in San Francisco closing down, the biggest mall in San Francisco closing down. The vacancies are through the roof. And I think a lot of local residents, and especially the business owners and the small ones, they all want some major change. So the APEC event actually brought some change. Essentially what it did was it actually cleaned up the streets for once, because you had a lot of people outside the country coming in. They want to make a good impression, right? But here's the thing about San Francisco. The impression they made was okay, right? But what they did was just pretty much put all the homeless people and all the encampments all into like the Tenderloin district. So it's kind of like telling a kid to clean his room. He does clean his room, but he shoves all the junk in his closet and closes the door. And now, once that door is open, all the stuff comes out. So now, San Francisco never really did any major changes. They basically just put people from this location to a different location. And what people are saying is basically they move people from downtown and the Mission and other areas into Tenderloin, deeper into the Soma, or in other locations. This isn't really the best deal, right? At first, I thought they probably found them like a pretty good homeless shelter or like a good home. But no, San Francisco basically just did this as a one-time thing. Pretty much 7 days of clean San Francisco, and now San Francisco is back the way it is. Everyone was actually pretty happy that San Francisco might have done major changes in solving their crime and homeless population. But in fact, it was just to delay the situation. Now, business owners like Tom Wong is saying that the city streets are back to the original form just a couple of days after the APEC summit. And essentially says that now there's poop everywhere. There's a lot of crime, a lot of homelessness, and business owners are pretty much saying that the mayor is downplaying the crime, even though San Francisco is back to the way it was, and it's not great at all, right? The streets are just rid of crime, the drugs, and homelessness. If you check out some of the walking tours, if you check out some of the videos on X, you probably notice that people are already starting to smoke fentanyl, injecting whatever it is in like the Civic Center. They're doing that on Market Street again. And at first, everyone thought, like I said, that San Francisco might have gotten a great cleanup. And they might be cleaning up and finding big solutions, because they do make a lot of money from tax dollars. But no, it's back to the way it was. It just kind of sucks, right? And not to mention, a lot of APEC business owners around the area suffered huge losses because of APEC, because a lot of these places in the city were walled off. They were literally like barricades. So many of these stores did not get enough foot traffic, and they lost like 80-90% of business. And guess what's happening now? A lot of these businesses say it's worth losing business if San Francisco could actually clean up the streets for good. And if they clean up the streets, have a lot more security, a lot more cops around, a lot of tourists, and a lot of companies will come back. But surprise, surprise, they took a massive loss from the APEC event, and now the streets are back to the way it was. So yeah, good luck, San Francisco business owners. They are taking L's after L's, and they're not making any money. And this is why many companies are just simply moving out. They're kind of sick of it. And it's really scary when you have guys like Starbucks and Whole Foods that are closing down. These guys spend millions of dollars to enter a city, and they don't want to go out, because when they want to re-enter a city, it's going to cost them even more time and millions more dollars. So a lot of times when big corporations like Starbucks, Amazon, when they leave, they get analysts to analyze the future potential of the city. If they don't see any potential in the city anymore, they will close down, and they'll probably lose on that very lucrative market. San Francisco is a very lucrative market for a lot of these food-related stores, right? Like supermarkets, groceries, stuff like that. But when you have a massive population decline, and then you also have a huge drop in office workers, of course, Whole Foods and Starbucks are leaving. And then add on top of that, a lot of shoplifting, a lot of crazy situations. People just don't want to live in the city anymore, right? Amazon, Gap, and even the Uniqlo are all closing down doors. And a lot of the designer stores are like walling off their stores, and many designer stores are simply leaving. You got very expensive stores like Will and Sonoma already shutting down their business. And there's a lot of stores leaving. If you look at the Westfield Mall in San Francisco, this is like San Francisco's biggest downtown mall, always gets a lot of tourists. This is Westfield Mall, right? A lot of stores, a lot of restaurants. It's very nice. And the vacancies are 50%, even though Westfield says that their other mall locations only have a vacancy rate of less than 8%. And a lot of times those vacancies are due to transitioning stores. But this Westfield is 50%. That's insane. 50% vacancy shows you that a lot of stores or a lot of stores just leave, or they just can't survive. The shoplifting is just absolutely insane on a whole different level. I like San Francisco. I've been here before the pandemic. It's a very fine city with great vibes and great energy in terms of the work culture. A lot of tech, a lot of talent. But now the streets are pretty empty. Bars are closing, stores are closing, and many of the talent is no longer going to San Francisco. Many of the talent is going to other parts of the Bay Area, or they go outside of California altogether. Seattle's still doing okay, but Vegas, surprisingly, is getting a lot of tech companies from San Francisco, and even Miami is becoming somewhat of a new financial and tech hub in the United States. The troubling fact is 34% of downtown San Francisco office space is completely empty, and every single quarter, it seems to jump up by an average of 2 to 3%. And what's really scary about this is many locals are saying that it's more than 34% because you have a lot more people just not moving in. You got a lot more people not commuting to San Francisco. Some people are saying that the vacancies are more like 50 to 70% in some neighborhoods because you still have leases that are being signed, but they haven't expired yet. For example, like the Meta one, the Facebook parent company, they essentially have a 435,000 square feet office in downtown San Francisco and 181 Fremont. And they're still signing a lease till 2031. So that still counts as a building being leased out despite a building with 0 employees. So you get the idea. And there's several buildings in San Francisco, several offices where the lease doesn't end until the next few years, some even the next decade, but there's no employers, right? Because if it's only 34% vacancy rates, there's still going to be a lot of people in downtown. You wouldn't really have Starbucks and Whole Foods and Uniqlo's closing down if it's only 34% vacancies. But because it's way more than that, and many offices are being leased but with no employees, I think San Francisco is kind of done for. And like I said, everyone's final bet was maybe the APEC event will actually change San Francisco up for the good, for the better. But eventually, the streets are back to the way it was. Nothing's really been changed, and people are very, very frustrated. So thanks for watching, guys. Comment below, and see you later.